What is going on, everyone? My name is Andy. Welcome back to another FPL video. In this one, it's the watch list ahead of Game Week 11. So we're going to go through some players that maybe did well this week or have got good upcoming fixtures that I'm basically looking at potentially transferring in. They're almost like my transfer targets. Now, I will say, before I started recording, Nuno Espirito Santo has been sacked from Spurs, right? So Spurs are looking for a new manager. Now, unfortunately, I can't wait around forever this morning to record this video because otherwise I'll never get it out in time for 2 p.m, right? But there's very strong rumours that Conte could be going to Spurs, which would be massive. That, like, sometimes managers change and we talk about new manager bounce, etc., etc. But Conte is a world-class manager, and that really would change my perspective over Spurs players. Now, interestingly, especially if you watched the stream last night, I was already considering them, Kane, Son, and obviously Reguilon as well. But if Conte comes, it kind of definitely puts them up a gear, especially when they've got really good fixtures to come as well. So in this video, I'm going to talk about a few Spurs players, of course. So I was going to do that anyway. But obviously, with Conte potentially coming, it definitely makes them a little bit more exciting. I will cover off that stuff in like the game week preview, team selection and things like that if Conte actually joins. But just keep in mind, he hasn't officially signed before this video goes out or before it gets recorded. He may well have done by the time it goes out. And if not, it might be a different manager, and we'll talk about that later on in the week. So all that out of the way, give it a like if you enjoy it. Hit that subscribe button if you're new around here. We are so close to 250k now. And let's get into the first player. Okay, so we'll come on to the Spurs excitement in just a minute. But for now, we're going to talk about Rhys James, because you were probably very excited if you were an owner in game week 10. Obviously, got the 2 goals coming off the back of a goal the week before against Norwich, I believe, as well. So he's had a pretty good couple of game weeks, especially when a lot of people predicted that he wouldn't start this week. I mean, I didn't know for sure. Like, a lot of people had obviously predicted that Azpilicueta was going to start right wing back. I remember, I'm almost certain I said on the deadline stream, there's no guarantee that happens. Rhys James could start. So for some of you, you probably were considering Rhys James to Chilwell. And for some of you did that move and you're probably in tears, and for some of you didn't, you're absolutely happy. So he's looking like a great buy right now, especially if you've got him at like 5.5 million. That's absolute crazy value. I think with the watch list videos, obviously, it's always players for my team, right? So I don't talk about players that I already own. But there are 2 ways to approach this. So first of all, do I think he's a good option this week? Absolutely. If I could do it for free, would I be tempted? I definitely would. If I had Diaz, I think Diaz to Rhys James is pretty good. Diaz to Chilwell is pretty good as well. Same for Azpilicueta if you've got a spare transfer. For my team, though, when I think about that, Laporte is the one I need to sell soon, right? Because he's got his red card. I think that Pep will probably use that, not as an excuse to play Stones, but he'll give Stones a chance now. And I think long-term, Laporte's just not going to be a great option for me, so I probably need to sell him. The problem is for my team, I can't go from Laporte to Rhys James because I've got no money in the bank because I did the Rafinha to Foden move last week. And yeah, recent moves are just coming back to haunt me a little bit. I haven't really played the last couple of weeks well. So then the question is, do I take a hit? And I don't think I do, right? I get that he scored a lot of goals. He's playing as a wing-back. He does get forward. He will score more goals as the season goes on, but to get 3 in 2 game weeks is maybe a little bit fortunate. Like, that doesn't happen that often for a defender, even a wing back under Tuchel for Chelsea. So I don't know if I need to rush out and take a hit to get him. And at that point, and by the way, again, I will say, if you want to buy him for Burnley at home, great choice. I'm just saying, I don't know if a hit is worth it. And then once you don't take that hit, where is the good entry point, right? We know how good Chelsea defence is. They could keep a clean sheet against Man United and against Leicester. And obviously Watford's a really good fixture as well. And then the fixtures for Chelsea are pretty good after that. So you could argue that getting him at any point is a good move. But there are kind of entry points where it's better to buy players. So Burnley at home and Watford away would be the next 2 best points to buy a Chelsea player, probably. Could Vardy and co do damage against them? And when I say damage, they only need to score 1 goal, right? Wipe the clean sheet, and then you're relying on attacking returns. And once you do that, the chance of a haul is obviously a little bit lower. Of course, if Newcastle had scored at the weekend, he would have still got 2 goals and it would have been a ridiculous score. But you kind of get what I'm trying to say. So for me, I'd love to get him in. I don't think it's worth a hit. I think I'll be chasing points a little bit, which I definitely have been guilty of the last few weeks. And so I think I'll probably put it off maybe till game week 13 or 14, depending on how my other transfers go. But in terms of anyone else wanting to buy him, he's 11.5% owned. Clean sheets are going to be coming for Chelsea, or they're going to continue to happen. And he looks so attacking right now. It's probably a pretty decent move if you've got a spare transfer. But for me, I'm probably not going to have him for Burnley at home, and I don't like that at all. Okay, let's stick to defenders, right? Because I really am looking at how or what I can do with Laporte, because he will need to go sometime soon. And kind of probably not this week because they play Everton away, and I don't think that's a bad time necessarily to buy Spurs players. But again, the best entry point for them is probably Leeds at home. At that point, I'm probably going to have to sell Laporte, and I don't have the money to upgrade him, like I just said. So I'm probably going to have to downgrade. So I mentioned on stream again last night, for those of you that watched, that I was looking at Reguilon anyway, which I know seems crazy, especially when Nuno didn't play him in the last game. But now we know a new manager is going to come in. I'd be very surprised if Ben Davies gets many more minutes, especially when Reguilon's pretty much played 90 minutes in every single game. Like, he is the better player. It's not just going forward. He's a better defender as well, I would say, right now than what Ben Davies is too. And the fixtures just look good. So I would have been happy with him anyway. I think Leeds at home, okay, that's not the easiest place to go and get a clean sheet. Burnley away, Brentford at home, Norwich at home, Brighton away. They're not bad fixtures. Like, Brighton are a good team, but they are struggling to create lots of chances this season. So that is a really nice run of fixtures at a time when, okay, Rhys James, Chilwell, Cancelo, Diaz still to a certain point as well are really good options. But below that kind of 5.5 million price point, it is pretty tricky to pick up a player. Like Lamptey, if we knew he was going to start week in, week out, I would definitely consider him. Luke Shaw, when the fixtures turned for Man United as well, I would consider him. But it's kind of slim picking. So I don't think Reguilon is the worst option. Let's talk about what happens if Conte signs for Spurs. Like, it is ridiculous. I think, like, I mean, most of you are going to know, right, just how good this guy is. He is going to come in and he's probably going to transform Spurs pretty quickly, I would say. Everyone's expecting him to come in and play a back three. We'll have to wait and see what happens, but that is kind of his staple formation to go to. And if you think about, he could play 3-4-3 or 3-5-2. Either way, Reguilon's going to be the wing-back. There's no way it's going to be Ben Davies. If anything, Ben Davies might play like left centre-back or something, but Reguilon is going to be the wing-back. And I just think Spurs' potential for clean sheets will go up, and I think his attacking potential will also go up, because his numbers aren't that great, like 0.08 expected assists. When you compare them to what we just saw from Rhys James, that's quite low, but you'd expect that to go up. And I think any manager, even a good one like Conte, or a really good one like Conte, is going to probably have a little bit of adjustment time, but they have kind of got the perfect fixtures to adjust to how they want him to play. Like, if they suddenly had a run of like Chelsea, Man City, Man United, and Liverpool, or whatever, like, you know, those four teams in the space of 5 or 6 game weeks, then maybe it's a bit more difficult to implement your system, because not only are they having to relearn or learn something new potentially, they're also having to play some really good teams. They've got kind of the really good, or one of the best fixture runs right now possible. So Reguilon is seriously on the cards for me. Like, right now, what I'm looking at is making a move this week and then next week funding Kane or Son. And if it's Kane, then the easiest way for me to do it is to sell Laporte. And Reguilon currently is my number one choice just because of how good the fixtures are. I mean, he's on 4 points per match, which isn't amazing, but it's not bad considering they've been under Nuno. I mean, he was quite a conservative manager, so you maybe should have expected a few more clean sheets than they got. But I think with Conte, you're going to get those clean sheets. And I say with Conte, like, he might not sign, and if he doesn't, I'll still consider him, but I probably will look at other options as well. If Conte comes, he probably will be the player that comes in. I won't even think about it. I just think you're going to get those clean sheets, but he's also going to kind of transform into a pretty damn decent wing back as well, supplying in a 3-5-2, potentially Kane and Son up front. Like, it's almost ready made for Spurs to play that system. So Reguilon is definitely on the watch list. He also dropped last night, so he's down to 5 million. That could be an absolute bargain. He's right up there on my watch list. Okay, let's talk about Son. I don't want to make this all about Conte, because he might not, sign for Spurs, and he might not be signed by the time this video goes out. But I am strongly, I am pretty much going to buy a Spurs attacker regardless of who comes in for Nuno, because I just think those fixtures are so good. And I think, look, Spurs haven't had many shots. They haven't had many shots on target, and yet Son still has 6.1 points per match. This guy always finds a way to score. Leeds at home, Burnley away, Brentford at home, Norwich at home. It's almost perfect. Like, I know a lot of people have been saying the Brentford defence has been good, and to be fair, the underlying numbers, expected goals conceded, they do look pretty good, but they've shown at the weekend they can still be scored against, right? Burnley did perfectly fine against them. I'm sure Son and Kane can find a way as well. I won't go into too much about Kane versus Son in this one, because for my team it is a little bit weird about which way I want to do my transfers, so I'll save that for the team selection video. I would say that Son has probably looked better than Kane this year so far, but I don't think, like, Kane's numbers just look fine to me. And if you're saying that, okay, he doesn't really want to be there, that's why he's playing like that, Maybe that's true. Maybe they've just had a little bit of a tough run recently, and maybe Leeds, Burnley, Brentford and Norwich will be the turning point for Harry Kane. So if you're saying to me now, like a wild card, which one would I put in? I'd probably put Kane in. But if Conte comes in and plays 3-5-2, which again I think is ready-made, they could play 3-4-3 with Son playing, on the left, and probably would come inside quite a lot because Reguilon will be providing that width on that left side. Then Son close to goal that often for a little bit less money as well than Kane. Let's not forget that. Could be a really good option. I just think there is potential over these fixtures to possibly captain Kane or Son. Now, I know everyone's going to say, well, you can't captain anyone that's Salah. I get that, but I guess it's not a knee-jerk, but obviously Brighton's shown that Salah is human. He only got 1 assist. And I do think for the next couple of weeks, I probably will still captain Salah. But that Game Week 15 fixture in particular against Norwich looks pretty good to me to go for a Spurs player potentially. And Kane is probably the one that I'd always turn to. And to be honest, again, for my team, it's maybe a little bit easier to get Kane than it is to get Son. That shouldn't mean that you discount Son. And to be honest, if you had the structure where you could keep Salah and have Kane and Son if Conte came in, that might not be the worst double up going around. But that is a decision that I need to make, right? Do I go for Son and get another striker up front, or do I let Kane take that place? And a lot of it for me comes down to Antonio. If I do Antonio to Tony, there's not too many other strikers that I want, so maybe Kane takes that slot. If not, I go for Son and I put someone else in, maybe a little bit of a punt. And there is a player that I'm considering. Let's talk about them. Okay, so talking of manager merry-go-rounds, obviously Newcastle are also looking for a new manager, right? Steve Bruce is gone. Since then, they've drawn 1-1 with Crystal Palace, which to be fair, given how well Palace did against Man City, I know Man City went down to 10 men. It's probably not a bad result, 1-1 away to Crystal Palace. Crystal Palace have looked good so far. And then they lost 3-0 to Chelsea. But I don't think we should really read anything into that because which teams don't lose to Chelsea, right? There's not too many. Chelsea get plenty of wins under their belt. There's nothing to be ashamed of there. So I'm not completely put off Newcastle. I know that Callum Wilson, a bit like Antonio at times, is a bit of an injury risk, which isn't great. But when he does play, he's decent, right? 0.4 non-penalty expected goals per 90 is not bad. It's not elite or anything like that, but he is pretty much nailed for 90 minutes when he is fit. So that's a big plus. And he is on penalties too. And he gets to play Brentford, Norwich and Burnley over the span of 4 game weeks. So again, I'm looking at Game Week 12 as kind of maybe a bit of a turning point for my team. I know like a lot of people are going to be looking at Spurs players as well, especially again if Conte comes in. But if I go for Son, then I need a striker. Unless I keep Antonio, which I don't think I'm going to. So Tony comes in and I've got a spare striker slot. And there's not too many players there. Gabriel Jesus, unfortunately, is not an option just because of cost. And I've still got Laporte to deal with at some point. But Callum Wilson, I think, is a genuine option. He's only 1.6% owned as well. I don't know if I would necessarily own him long term. Like after that Burnley at home game, it's Leicester away, Liverpool away, Man City at home, Man United at home. But around that time, that Game Week 16, that's when Antonio's fixtures start to come decent again. I think they've got Burnley away in Game Week 16, then it's Arsenal away, I believe, and then a really good run of fixtures over Christmas. Now, obviously, there's always going to be rotation concerns over Christmas, especially for a player like Antonio, but I would want him back. So maybe Wilson is the stopgap in between that. You are kind of relying on him doing pretty well in that Game Week 12 to 15 bracket, because if he doesn't, then you've maybe lost a bit of money on Antonio. And the problem with Antonio is, if he does happen to get like the odd goal here or there for like Liverpool or against Liverpool or Man City, then his price might hold, and then it's a lot of money to buy him back, especially if you've been on him since Game Week 1. Like he's gone all the way up to 8.2 million, so it could be tricky to buy him back. So there's all that to consider. But if I do get a striker, there's a few options. Morpé's another option as well. Tony I've not put on here because I think I'm just going to get him anyway. It's whether I need a third striker alongside him and Jimenez. And Wilson's definitely someone I'm looking at because I think the fixtures are decent. I wouldn't necessarily rush out to buy him for Game Week 11, but from Game Week 12, I think he's a good option. So there we go. Let me know what you think about those players. Who is on your watch list for Game Week 11 and beyond as well? And if Conte is signed by the time this video goes out, let me know what you think about that as well. We obviously will cover that in more videos this week. I do think it leaves Man United in a pretty tricky position, but I just think they don't want Conte. I think if they wanted him, they could have had him by now. I'm not saying that's the right move, but I think that is probably what has happened. But at Spurs, I do feel like Spurs are almost ready-made for Conte with the players they've got. I think they definitely can play a wing-back system. I think Reguilon's really good. Matt Doherty, maybe he'll come back into it. I doubt it, right? Emerson Royale's there. And if they wanted to play 2 up front, Like, I think Lukaku and was it Martinez played up front as a 2 for Inter Milan. I could have that wrong, but I think that's correct. Kane and Son are almost ready-made. Like, Son as a striker is so good. Like, the guy is brilliant. So there's lots to be excited about from an FPL point of view, but obviously we have to wait to see if it happens. And even if it doesn't, I'm still looking at Kane, Son and Reguilon because I think the fixtures are just that good, and I don't have an easy route to Rhys James. But if you do, you should definitely consider buying him. If you enjoyed that video, please do give it a like, hit that subscribe button, and I will be back tomorrow. See you then.